Meet one of the newest members of one of the world's most exclusive clubs. Thomas Christopher Collins grew up almost literally in the shadow of Guelph, Ontario's Church of Our Lady, where he attended and served morning mass. After mulling careers in teaching and the law, he opted for the priesthood. Fast forward to February 2012 and his elevation to Cardinal, just the 16th Cardinal ever to come from Canada. A half-century after Vatican II brought dramatic changes to the Church and the world, he faces tough questions about the Church's place in the 21st century. Today, Thomas Cardinal Collins joins Lorna Dewick for a feature interview. This is Context, a look at life beyond the headlines.
This year, Pope Benedict appointed the Archbishop of Toronto, Thomas Collins, to become one of 2 Canadian cardinals advising him in Rome. And we are honored to have him with us now. Please welcome His Eminence Thomas Cardinal Collins to Context. Thank you. Wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
You know, nothing matches the pomp and ceremony of all those wonderful pictures we saw in the opening.
Yes, yeah. It's quite dramatic.
Well, what has this been like for you?
Well, it's been amazing, you know, this beautiful ceremony in February for the, being elevated to the College of Cardinals. It's been a very beautiful spiritual experience, as well as something very dramatic and social and very busy. Because the College of Cardinals is very ancient, and many of the members of it have been great saints, and so there are a lot of models to follow. There are also some models not to follow, like Cardinal Richelieu and people like that, but I think I'll stay clear of that.
Well, for the layperson like myself, what does it mean to be a cardinal?
Well, it means that you have a very central role in the life of the Universal Church. The Catholic Church is about a little over 1 billion members. And the cardinals, there are 120 cardinals who have the very profound role of voting for Pope, of electing the Pope. And many others who are involved. We're involved in various ways of being consulted by the Holy Father. For example, I'm on 2 groups or congregations or departments in Rome. One of them is a congregation for education, and the other is a congregation for social communications, which is how the Church can use media, various forms of modern social communication to communicate the gospel more effectively.
Yes, you even have had the patron saint of media on your BlackBerry wallpaper, I understand.
Well, that's it. Yeah, St. Francis de Sales. Yeah,
and
he's also, you could say, he's the patron of marketing with a name like Francis de Sales, but he's actually
and
the
how
patron.
did he become the patron saint of media, I must ask?
Well, he was an amazing saint in the time, roughly the time of Shakespeare. And he used all the different modern social communications things of his days, like printing, little pamphlets and things like that. He wrote some wonderful books, and he communicated with the people through preaching. He said that lips speak to the ears, but heart speaks to heart. Cor et cor loquitur. And so that idea of communicating that way, that's why he is the patron saint of journalists, of media people. It was a great saint.
You have a wonderful story, really, of being this little kid in Guelph that now advises the Pope. How did it happen?
I have no idea. I look back and think and say, who would have thunk? You know, no, but I don't know. It's been amazing. You know, by God's grace, you just go from moment to moment. And when I was a little kid, and when I was in school, I was never kind of a leader in the school. I would just read and study and be rather quiet and shy. And so I, by God's grace, by the example of some wonderful priests, I think were used by the Lord to help me to discover my call to the priesthood. And then I became a priest. And from that moment on, you ask to become a priest. But after that, you don't ask, you just receive calls, like from the Lord, but you receive a call, like a phone call, to tell you to, it's like, this is the nuncio, we're sending you somewhere.
Yeah, and you got an email about this last papal appointment.
Yeah, pull up my little BlackBerry, and there is, call the nuncio immediately. And so I phoned his office. I was in Washington at a meeting on liturgy, of all things, of how to do translations of our books of worship. And it said, and I called, and the office said, well, tomorrow morning the Pope is going to make you a cardinal. So I said, oh, well, amazing. So I immediately changed my flight, got back home, and that whole day was being interviewed a lot.
So before all of that can begin, before the calls from God begin, somewhere you had to decide, like every person, what am I going to do with the reality of Jesus? Do you remember that? Can you take us back to when your relationship with Jesus began?
Well, all my life I've been very blessed with a family that was very much practicing Catholics, very much involved in the life of the parish. And I was deeply moved by the example of both my mother and my father, but particularly my father. And I remember when I was a little child, he was a member of a group of men who would go up during the night to spend time in adoration before our Lord Jesus and the Blessed Sacrament. And I would go along with him. And just that, to see him in prayer was something to behold. And then in his life, he had great suffering. He had tuberculosis, he had strokes, he had all kinds of great suffering in his life. And throughout it all, he had this deep inner peace. It's just this inspiration of his holiness and the gentleness with which he would deal with life. And so that led me, I think, to get closer and closer to our Lord Jesus. And he never said to me, you should become a priest or something. Other people did, but it was that, I think, that led me to particularly to appreciate the presence of our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. And I just was reading a few days ago a thing from J.R. Tolkien, who said, all romance, all joy, all sacrifice in life is found in the Blessed Sacrament. He wrote it to his son. And that's what transfigured his life. In the midst of often a great deal of suffering himself, that's what led to The Lord of the Rings and all of his great writings. So that romance, that beauty of the presence of our Lord Jesus in the Holy Eucharist is so central, and it's just amazing.
So I want to take you from that, incredible childhood you had where all of those experiences with Christ were close to you, to what you now describe to as the scattered. People not connected to church. That's a great reality in Canada. And so to help us do that, I went out with a camera and we collected a few questions, this time at the University of Toronto, just last week. And so here's one of those questions.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Cardinal what he is doing to reach out to young people like me, because I don't see as much church involvement in my university.
Well, that's a good question. I think we do need to be very attentive to people, young people, university, and at every level of school. We do have chaplaincy at the various universities, though we don't have as much as we'd like in some places. We're trying to kind of get in there. But we need to do more, and particularly, I think, to reach out to people who, when they go to university, get disconnected from their roots. They're away from home for the first time. They maybe the tradition of the family was go to church regularly, but now they're kind of on their own, and it's easy to get disconnected. So we have to be sure they have a place to get reconnected.
All right, we've got another question here, for this time from our studio audience. We're going to ask this lady here.
His Eminence, how do you balance your dual roles as a cardinal and as the Archbishop of Toronto?
Thank you. Good question.
Thank you very much. Well, my fundamental role is Archbishop of Toronto. That's the portion of the Lord's vineyard the Lord, that's been entrusted to me to care for. I'm the spiritual father of this community of about almost 2 million Catholics. So it's an absorbing life, and it's my joy. That's my central role, and I think that the Pope, for example, he used to have bishops going over to Rome a whole lot. He said, no, better they stay back home. The greatest thing, in a sense, you can do for the church is take care of your own diocese. But I do have this role for the Universal Church. And I'm going to try to be sure that I remember that my primary role is Archbishop of Toronto.
Okay, we're going to stay with you. So now it's time to find out what you think. Is it time for Vatican III? Join that conversation. Give us your vote on that. On Facebook or Twitter, our studio audience is taking a live vote, and we'll have those results in a moment. Now, getting controversial with Cardinal Collins is next, but first, what is a cardinal?
For lo, these past 8 centuries and change, the high and holy duty of electing Pope has fallen to the College of Cardinals. Hailing from countries around the world, cardinals also serve as the Pope's close advisors, a sort of senate to the Church. The term cardinal derives from the Latin cardo, meaning hinge or axis. The eponymous bird is so named for its bright red color, resembling the blood-red hat a cardinal wears, signifying that he is expected to witness to the faith usque et sanguinis effusionem, or even unto the shedding of blood. Asked to name a famous cardinal, many, if not naming Stan Musial or Dizzy Dean, might recall England's Cardinals Wolsey or Newman, or France's Cardinal Richelieu. Within the Church, cardinals come in three varieties: cardinal bishops, cardinal priests, and cardinal deacons. Some are stationed in Rome, others in church communities worldwide, and all may be summoned to Rome to provide help and counsel should the Pope so request.